I'm Levi Steele, and this is the Ordinary People Podcast. All right, y'all, welcome back to the podcast today. Today we have another episode, but we're doing something a little bit different today. Instead of having one guest, I actually have two guests, and it's a husband and wife couple, a couple that has meant so much to me throughout my life growing up in church, Mr. Johnny and Miss Karen Peak. Thank y'all so much for being here.
We're glad to be here.
Thank you for asking us.
So we're going to talk with them about their life. They're going to share their testimony and just some exciting things we're gonna discuss today. So without further ado, y'all tell me kind of a little bit about yourselves. Give people kind of a brief overview, and then tell us how you know my family.
Okay. Well, really and truly, we met your grandparents first with homeschooling because they had homeschooled a lot longer than us. And so we were all headed to a conference, and we were young enough, we didn't really know what we were supposed to be doing. And they had an extra hotel room. So they just said, oh, you can just have it. So just come on. So they kind of looked after us through that. And we got to meet all the kids, all of their kids through that. And that's how we got to know the family. Now we've been homeschooling because we had later children too. We've homeschooled with all you guys, with our younger kids.
So another generation.
Another generation, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
So that's just kind of funny how it translates from one to the next.
Exactly. And we got to enjoy both, which is, you don't usually get to do that, but we did. So it was great. It's been good.
So you knew my grandparents then, is
Right.
who y'all
That's
came
who we
to
knew
know,
first,
and
yes.
then y'all. So kind of tell me about your kids a little bit and the age range there. So just to kind of give people an idea of how, you know what
How
I'm
we did
saying,
that,
how
yes.
it went from you homeschooled some kids that were sort of like closer to my parents' age, and
Right,
then one
right.
that's my age now.
Right. Well, we got married in 1983. 82. Boy, I'm about to get in trouble. But we got married in 82. Lived here in Thomaston for 3 years, and then LaGrange for 8, I think it was. So when we moved back, we were already homeschooling, and so we were trying to get connected to people, and that's when we met your grandparents, sometime during that time. And our older kids at the time, when we moved back, I think they were 9, 7, and 5. Yeah, 9, 7, 5. And so we had the what we call the top three, the older three, and they were the same age actually as Bob and Jan's. I guess not quite as old as Jenny, but kind of in between Jenny and your dad.
Yeah.
Tyler was. And
Okay.
then Tori was a little younger than Ben. He was more Isaiah's age. And then Tatum and Anna were the same age.
Gotcha.
So we were in homeschool band with them too for a while. And Jenny and I sat side by side just about every day. Because I wanted to play in the band too. I was one of those mothers, that the children played, but I also played.
So now.
And now, yeah, several years, let's see, 14 years later, after our baby daughter was born, because we got 2 boys, then a girl. 14 years later, we have another girl, and then 3 years later, we have a boy, which is Titus, our youngest, and he's 20 now. So, it's gone by fast.
And getting ready.
And that's in your category. So when we had the later 2 children, we were still homeschooling because we had kids in high school, but then we were kind of reintroduced to the younger crowd and the young moms, and they were so sweet to just, I say, take me in, because here I am, I'm old enough to be their mothers, but yet they brought me in just like I was one of them. So it really blessed my heart a lot because they acted like I was their age, and that made me feel good.
Where did y'all's homeschool journey begin? What made y'all decide to begin homeschooling?
Well, so Tyler started school, started kindergarten in LaGrange in August. I guess back then they would have started in August, maybe September. But anyway, so he started there, and Tyler already knew how to read, probably
He
knew
was reading at
everything
4.
that you needed to know as a kindergartner, kindergarten graduate. But so his teacher realized that, and so she would use him to read to the class, and that was fine. I mean, we knew he was a very strong student, and but there were a couple of things that he came home and told us about. I think it was a couple of books that
Some
they had
books, some
read.
conversation and songs.
And we just thought, I'm not sure this is the best thing for him. And so at the Christmas break, we made the decision that that was it. So we withdrew him from school, told him we were homeschooling, did the letter of intent and all of that, and then we jumped in feet first. And
Was homeschooling still a little like taboo at that time?
It was because my family at first was not supportive at all. They were so afraid for us because really and truly, most everybody I grew up knowing homeschooled were usually an evangelist family or something where the evangelists had to travel and they lived in a camper, that kind of thing. So I think mom and daddy just had a different view of what it actually was in the time we were in at that point. And they figured out over time that it was the best thing.
I think they had been exposed more to the unschooler.
The unschooler instead of the true homeschooler.
Which is still common.
It is still very common. Yes, it is still very common. And there have been some very successful kids with the unschooling way of doing things, but I would say fewer that have than didn't do so well. So,
I think it can become easy a lot of times
yes.
to just one will get lazy with it, and
Exactly.
then two, just there's no discipline there. There's no sense of, well, I have a deadline to get this thing done.
Right.
And even in homeschooling, it wasn't always for me like I have to get this certain thing done at this certain time. But when I started taking like classes at GMC, dual enrollment classes, I really learned that like I have a deadline for stuff. And I came to like the deadline because
Right.
it pushed me to get stuff done. Like I couldn't procrastinate. I could only procrastinate to a certain point.
Right.
But a lot of times, what for me is, I guess I'd say unfortunate a lot of times, is you see these people that are saying they're homeschooled. One, they don't do a lot of school. And then
Right.
two, they sleep until 9 or 10 o'clock every single day.
And wear their pajamas all day.
Right.
And we
then
didn't get to do that.
No, neither did we.
Yeah.
And you have these kids that are going to school for whatever, what is it, 6 hours a day?
Yeah.
More than,
Yes. Yeah.
And they got to get up early. Some of them
Exactly.
getting themselves up, making their own lunches, and
Right.
so I think it's very important that if you're going to homeschool, that you make sure you're doing it for the right reasons,
Right.
and that
Exactly.
you're like dedicated to it, like
Right.
you're going to put the effort in.
Exactly. And, I've discovered over time ADHD. I did not know that. When we were young, they didn't do all that, did they? So I need a schedule. I need disciplined time to say, okay, this we're doing here, we're doing this here. I have to have it step by step to truly get things done. So that was better for me too on that end. So at first I brought the way I did school when I was teaching public school, I just kind of brought it home and it was too rigorous. So I had to learn how to relax in some places where it could truly be more of a benefit than just, a different place to do school.
So talk to me a little bit now about what you're doing after homeschooling for so many years.
Well, I have gone back to work. I took, a year off? and I was miserable. I could not wait to be done with school because I thought, because actually by the time I graduated the top three and then waited to graduate the bottom two, I'd had 36 years in and didn't even realize it. And so I was really ready to just retire, so to speak. And I was going to paint and draw and all that, which I did, but I don't like being at home by myself. I like to have somebody else there with me, and he's still working right now. So it was a God thing when I got the job that I have now. I've gone back to public school. I'm actually working as a para, though, instead of just a regular teacher because it was the perfect job for me. We had just talked, the week before, I think, about the perfect job would be working in a library and maybe teaching some or tutoring. And then I actually took a friend of mine to your dad's school to have an interview for a position. And while I was there, we took her kids inside to see everybody. And when I did, I found out from Miss Richardson about the job that I'm actually in now. So, needless to say, I was quite excited. I actually texted your dad that night and said, "Hey, I don't know how to apply for jobs online. What do I do?" And he told me exactly what to do, and so I did it. And I'm working there now and absolutely love it. Have usually, well, full days. I have 6 classes a day, and I see all 600 students within a month.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
get to know them all.
See a lot of different faces
Yes,
each day.
yes, and I really do love it. I really do love being able to see everybody like that. It just makes it better when you see them in the hall and things like that. You get to
Yeah.
know them all.
That's so neat.
Yeah, it
That's so
is.
neat.
It
So you
is.
couldn't do retirement.
Couldn't do retirement, at least not yet. Yeah, I love the kid. I just love being with kids and teaching so much. So this job has truly been a blessing because it doesn't carry a lot of the same responsibilities that a homeroom teacher with her class all day would have necessarily with the grades and the parents and that kind of thing. But yet at the same time, I get to invest in their lives, help them with reading, help them with writing, and just get to love on them and hopefully make them stronger for their regular classroom.
Can you talk just briefly before we move on to y'all's story about the transition from like a homeschool mom into the actual public school classroom?
Yeah, I think probably the most difficult part was catching on to how different the world views things. I've heard people say a lot that homeschoolers are protected and sheltered. And honestly, at first that offended me, but later I'm like, yeah, I sure hope they are. Because we wanted our children to have a great worldview, not a worldview that was tainted by worldly things. And so I guess even for me as a teacher and an adult, I did not realize where and how a lot of these children were living, things that they believed that just aren't real. And I don't mean like make believe characters, I mean just life skills, excuse me, that they don't know how to do. They just really don't know how to do because no one's teaching them. So I think that was the most difficult transition for me was just me beginning to understand where their needs really were. It wasn't the same way needs were for homeschoolers because their parents were already caring enough to have them out and sacrificing that time for them and giving a godly example, a Christian example. And these were children that weren't not necessarily getting that. We do have some that are, but a lot that are not as well. So that was the hardest transition, I think.
Let's transition now into
Okay.
y'all's story a little bit. So, kind of tell me about each of yourselves and where you grew up, and what were some things y'all did for fun growing up.
You go first.
I grew up in Thomaston. I was there. I mean, that was all of my life before marrying, and then several years later moving away to LaGrange. But so I grew up there. Grew up in a little community called Silvertown, and as far as I'm concerned, it was the perfect place to for a child to be raised. It was a little mill village. I thought about this last night. I would guess probably 80% of the residents, 80% of the houses in that neighborhood were owned by textile employees. Many of them, Martha Mill, where my dad worked, because Martha Mill, when they opened, they came in and they built the houses for the employees, and then the employees bought the houses back from them. So anyway, people worked together, lived together, went to church together, and I mean, we all looked out for one another. You know, if I did something wrong at my friend's house down the street, well, by the time I got home, my mama knew about it because their mama or daddy or whoever called and told them. So, you know, but it was a perfect place to grow up. Things I did for fun. I mean, I was all about sports, baseball, football, any kind of ball, cops and robbers. You know, our little neighborhood, I mean, it was a great place to play cops and robbers. And my worst experience cops and robbers was one day I forgot when I was cutting a corner that there was a street pole there in the way. And I'm not talking about a fence post, a metal fence post. I'm talking about probably a 3.5 inch diameter steel pole, and I hit it head on.
You were on your bike, weren't you?
And it almost, yeah, I was on my bike, and it almost knocked me out. But anyway, I got up and got on the bike and kept going. But yeah, so it was a great place to grow up.
You left it all out there for the game.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about kind of just the history of Thomaston within the, because from my understanding, it used to be like big time in mill works, a big mill town.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Thomaston Mills was the biggest. I mean, it was the home of Thomaston Mills, and they had, I don't remember how many locations, maybe 5, 6 locations. And I'm not sure of the employment at the time, but there was also Martha Mills, which the family that owned Thomaston Mills started Martha Mills as well. But between those two companies, they probably employed, I'm going to say, somewhere around 6,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And you're talking about a town of only 10, 12, 13,000 at the time. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it was a major, major impact. I mean, there were other businesses, but textiles were the base for sure.
And what happened there with that? Why did...
Well, primarily with NAFTA, everything moved offshore because it was cheaper to make it there, and textiles just kind of fizzled, you know, for the most part. I mean, it was a slow death, but I mean, it was a death to an industry, pretty much.
And your dad played ball too, right? For the mill.
Yeah, he grew up in Rockdale County, north of Atlanta, northeast of Atlanta, and he was recruited by the folks at Martha Mill because he played baseball. He was a good baseball player, and they had a baseball team. There was a textile league, and they played one another, not just in the same town, but all around. They traveled a fair amount. And so they found out that he was a good ball player. And so they said, hey, we'd like for you to come play ball for us and we'll give you a job. So they got him to Thomaston, and that's why I'm here.
How about that?
And that was wasn't that like the semi-pro thing? Kind
Somewhat,
of, they
yeah.
would pick pro players maybe from some of those teams. So,
Really?
yeah.
Before like minor league stuff?
Yeah.
How about that?
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, very. Very.
It was a lot less
Competition.
organized than
Yeah.
what we have today. But yeah, it was sort of a minor league group.
So, how do you think hobbies and what kids do for fun, how do you think it's changed from, when you were a kid to like my age now? You have a son my age, so how do you think it's changed, and do you think it's changed for the better?
Well, just because I think I grew up at the perfect time in the life of our universe. I think the way we did it was best. Now, obviously, it's
A little
a
bias.
little biased, but I think back then we had to be a lot more creative. Make up your games, and rather than you've got a device there in your hand, or a computer, or you bought something in a box. You came up with games.
Kids had more imagination.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not taught to have imaginations anymore because there's such a constant stream of just instant gratification, instant
Yes.
dopamine hit.
They don't have to think.
No.
It's
The
scary.
creativity has drastically gone down. And even like with what we were talking about before, the rise of AI and all this stuff, is
Right.
creativity has kind of fizzled in some
It
ways. Now,
has.
there's very creative individuals still out there, I believe.
Right.
But
Right.
you have to make a choice that like you're not going to let it replace your creativity.
Mm.
For me, I found myself even with it when it's easy to use it for certain stuff, not
Mm-hmm.
using it because I don't want it to do all the thinking for myself.
Right.
I
Right.
want to think for myself. I don't want this computer to this
think
artificial intelligence. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly.
I want to
Yeah.
use my imagination that
Right.
I believe God gave me. I believe like it's so cool with kids. Like even me, growing up, we had like an iPad that we could watch stuff on like Saturdays, and I had a PlayStation. And I didn't play a lot, but like we went and played in the sandbox and built forts
Right,
and stuff like
exactly.
that. And that is something that I will never take for granted. That's a special part of growing up because I got to use my imagination and think about these things and create these worlds and characters in my
Right.
mind, just like I'm sure y'all got to do.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
So, Miss Karen, you tell me a little bit about yourself. Then.
Well, I was born and raised in Lawrence County. Grew up in a little town called Dudley, which is just a spot literally on the map. We actually have a whole. It's a red light now, isn't it? It used to be caution light, but it's actually a red light now. But a very small town. How many people?
And
would
it's
you
not
say?
where they make the softballs.
No, I tried to tell people that when I was in college, just to feel like I was important, but oh well.
What's the
Dudley-based softballs were very
Yeah.
popular, and
Okay.
yeah, but
Used
we
to
didn't make them there.
almost every softball that you saw was a Dudley.
A Dudley softball, yeah. But I grew up all around family. Most of the land around us was farmland. The dirt there is just completely different than it is here. It's loamier, sandier. Wearing shoes was just it's something you did on Sunday when you had to or when you went to school. I can remember I had one brother, and my brother and I would go outside and play baseball, and we would be barefooted. I can remember coming in, and it looked like we had socks on. where the dirt had just all the way up to the knees. We were completely dirty, but we've been out in the yard and in the field playing ball. But my first job was detasseling corn. It was a big farming community, and I was 13. I think I did that for about 3 years. So, and we always, one of the things we did for fun, we had someone usually to keep us through the summer because Mama worked full time, and usually somebody there to meet us after school. But we would get like a nickel. It started out with, then it turned into a quarter, just so we could ride our bikes downtown a few blocks away to get the mail and stop by the store to get a piece of candy. So that's a fond memory that I have doing that. And Irene, the lady, the housekeeper that kept us too, she'd walk and we'd ride our bikes and get the mail and get a piece of candy every day during the summer. It was great.
That sounds like a great way to grow up.
It was.
The way y'all are describing y'all's childhood is something that I envy because I always think I even hear stories from my dad about how they ride bikes to the gas station or whatever, and I'm like, man,
it was a safer time. It's just not. It's not safe like that anymore. I can remember actually. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was in high school. We had, I mean, we were very careful even still with things like hitchhikers or whatever. But I remember stopping one time when the interstate was built and came through. I remember us stopping and helping two girls. Daddy just felt like, and it was just the Holy Spirit, but he just felt like he should stop. And we were a little nervous, because we didn't know who these girls were, and we realized too they probably were nervous. And we helped them. They had a car that was broken down. We took them to the house, fed them supper, called their dad, and the dad came to the house and they got the car fixed and were able to go home that night. So wonderful stories like that. But I do remember when we had a hitchhiking situation with people we didn't really know, that it went south into a fatal situation. And so that's when I first realized that, oh, this is really dangerous. So I do remember when that change came about in the community where you just didn't do those things anymore.
Can you go into that a little bit?
As far as
the situation
was where this guy had seen two ladies on a bridge crossing an interstate down towards the Dublin area. It wasn't close to Dudley, but it was still 10 miles away. And he picked them up and they robbed him and killed him and took the car.
The women did?
The women did.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a really, really scary situation.
And what was the time frame on this? Like what decade?
It was the 70s.
Okay.
It was in the 70s, late 70s. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When that stuff really
became out, because when 70s, all the
80s.
The hippie movement and all had kind of already happened in the 60s and the 70s, and things just kind of went from there.
You think that is a result of the hippie movement? It just drove some of these people insane?
Well, I think it was more choices. The hippie movement gave freedom. Some of that freedom was good. Most of that freedom was not, because it carried it too far into totally sinful living to be accepted. And I think that's where it went wrong, is just people then begin to dare to do things that they would have never dared to do before.
It's sad the world had to change that way.
I know. It really is.
I wish we could go back.
I do too.
Well, y'all kind of tell me now. Let's go into how y'all met. So you both grew up separate towns in Georgia. Dudley, is that South Georgia?
Yes, it's below Macon.
Okay, so South Georgia.
Central.
Yeah, South Central Georgia.
Central.
And how did y'all's paths finally cross?
Well, so our paths crossed in college. Karen started at Georgia Southwestern in Americas, She's a year younger than I am. And I started my college career in Columbus, at Columbus College. I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. So I went to Columbus to play ball. And then I left Columbus at the end of that year, came back home and went to Gordon for a year and played ball. And then I left and went away again for my junior year, and this time I went to Georgia Southwestern to play ball. And so I got there, and I was in a fraternity. Karen was in a sorority, and she was what you call a little sister for one of the fraternities on campus. And her picture was actually in one of the fraternity houses I think it was when I went through Rush, maybe.
Mm-hmm, it was.
And I saw
met
her
him through
picture.
Rush. He doesn't remember.
What's Rush?
It's where you're inviting all of the new students on campus.
That want to join a
if they
fraternity
want
or
to join a
sorority.
fraternity, then you
Okay.
invite them to, they would come to the fraternity house and
They'd visit all of
visit
them.
all of them. And then if they wanted you to be a part of their fraternity, then
They give you a bid.
they would
An invitation.
it was called a bid, but it was an invitation to join. And if you didn't get a bid, you couldn't join.
Right. You had to be asked.
Yeah. So it was during that time, and I saw her picture on the wall, and I thought, wow, she was beautiful. And
And I
then-
shook his hand that night, and he didn't even remember it.
Well, and then I saw her in real life, and she was a little bit different, but she was actually prettier than the picture. So I thought, this is going to be good. And then anyway, then we met, and she was actually engaged
At one, yeah,
at
one time.
at one time, and really when we had gotten, I guess we had not. I mean, we had gotten to know who one another was,
Right.
other than just me knowing, okay, all right, Karen Davis, she's, this is this person, but we would see one another, in class or whatever, and so that was toward the end of a school year, and she was engaged, and everybody assumed that at the end of that year she was not going to be coming back. But that changed. So
Yeah, it did.
Why did they assume you weren't coming back?
Well, because I was engaged to a guy that lived down in South Georgia, and they just assumed I would move down there and and finish school down there, which is kind of what the plan sort of was, but it didn't happen.
And what's the story there?
Well, the story there is that I had been in school, I guess, for just a couple of years, and I had dated someone and we had broken up, but I was just kind of at a place I didn't know what to do or whatever. And I had met this fellow earlier in school, and he was a real good friend. And so he befriended me even more. And honestly, sometimes when you're dating, you talk about what you want to do in the future and things you'd like to do and blah, 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 blah. And I really think somehow during that conversation that he thought that he had kind of proposed, even though that's not what he did. We were just talking. Yeah, it was kind of strange, but he was such a sweet guy. I mean, he treated me like a queen all the time. And so when he comes up with a ring, I'm just like, okay, I don't want to hurt his feelings, And I thought, well, maybe this will be good, because when you're young, you just do stupid stuff, But anyway, so we were engaged for just a little while, and I realized I really did not love him, and I could not do that to him or me, that it just wasn't the right thing. So I broke it off. and went back to school.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you're you're a heartbreaker.
I was a heartbreaker. I couldn't help it. Never had been before, probably.
So y'all met at through your fraternity and your sorority, and
Yeah,
then kind of
really
got to
too.
know each other
Right.
through seeing each other at classes, whatever, just small
Right,
talk. So when
right.
did it kind of transition into just some small talk into an actual relationship?
Well, it was really kind of funny because, like he says, we knew each other, but we didn't spend like a lot of time just talking. We'd speak when we saw each other or whatever, but that was kind of about it. And two, he played baseball, and I many times I would be Batgirl for the baseball team, so I would see him then, But here again, when he first came, I had a boyfriend, and it wasn't the guy I was engaged to; it was somebody else. So he then got a girlfriend, and so then by the time I was single again, he was dating somebody, and so when I came back that fall, unengaged. Neither one of us were seeing anybody, so that's when we started dating. But we actually were at a really cool fraternity thing. They had, was it Dr. Dudley's house that had that party? Anyway, the guy, he has a lot of antiques. And so they kind of had like a poolside get together or whatever there. We didn't swim, but we wanted all to see me and a lot of the girls couldn't wait to see the antiques in the house because we'd heard about this house and not ever been. So we went, and he was actually on a date with one of my friends in my sorority. And I'm just standing there talking with some girls, and he walks up next to me and asked me about going out sometime. And I said, sure. But I'm thinking, poor Sherry, I hope that's okay. I'll have to talk with her. So,
My goodness.
yes. And of course, I found out then later it was just a friend's kind of date. And it's funny because Sherry ended up marrying his roommate. Yeah. So it was kind of neat. But he mentioned it that night, and then he called me the next
Yeah,
weekend. We went out.
well, actually, I asked you out, but you already had a
Oh yeah, I
prior
did have a
commitment.
prior
Yeah.
commitment. I had another date,
Yeah.
and so he had to wait a week, and he did. I didn't think he would. I figured he'd just go, boom.
What was the first date like?
Well, it was kind of embarrassing because he took me to the movie Caddyshack. And everybody had talked about what a great movie it was. We know Bill Murray; he's sometimes not real clean about things.
And Rodney Dangerfield.
And Rodney Dangerfield. So, needless to say, we're sitting here on a first date, going, "Oh my goodness," not almost not sure how to respond to, some of the things, but we did okay. We did all right. But what impressed me the most, that I have to say that I tell girls all the time and guys, he was the first guy to ever open the car door for me.
Really?
Yes, even when I was growing up in high school. I don't know if it's just because it was down in Countryville or what, but if they opened the car door for you, you got in on their side, or either you opened your own door. People just didn't raise gentlemen, I guess. I don't know, but he was raised very gentlemanly. And that impressed me right off the bat, that he treated me so well and was so polite. Yep. And when he came on campus, he was kind of like the good-looking guy
Okay.
that all the girls were hoping would ask them out. So
Oh, wow, the baseball player.
I really didn't expect him to be very deep or
Like a quality.
Yeah, I thought, well, we don't want to bother with him, but he was really core down inside a good guy, the best I had known. I actually knew within a month that I didn't want to lose him.
Wow, that quick.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I'd never felt that way before with anybody else, and it's weird when you finally get to the point that you go, okay, but what would I do if he doesn't stay? What do I do if he doesn't feel the way I feel? It was a scary feeling for a while.
You couldn't see yourself without him.
Without him. Could not. Just could not. So.
That's sweet. So how did y'all's relationship kind of escalate from there?
Well, things got serious fast, didn't they, honey? Yeah, they did. We were living that party lifestyle that included pretty much everything, and we both had some background things that kind of, I guess, put us in a place where we were living that way anyway. And it's not to blame anything we did wrong on someone else because it was still our choices.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but many times how you're raised and what you're raised around can carry you one way or the other. So anyway, very early on, we began to sleep together, and I got pregnant right off the bat. And that got serious real fast. That's kind of stopped us dead in our tracks. And what was it your dad had always told you?
He had always said, if he discovered that I was, I was introduced to pornography at a young age
And alcohol.
and alcohol, and so I can remember him telling me several times, "Don't you get some little girl in trouble? Don't you get some little girl in trouble?" Well, I got some little girl in trouble. So that's what I could hear
Yeah.
in my head.
And we came from two totally different backgrounds on that aspect because growing up in Silvertown with all the guys, of course they got into trouble, doing things that kids will do. Whereas and he was the youngest of the family.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how you got introduced to pornography, wasn't it? Or was it, or through some
Well, I
older
was the
boys?
youngest, and so, you know, we're, I would just say probably there was not enough attention
Placed there.
placed on making sure I was where I was supposed to be and doing what I was supposed to do.
And here I was right on the
Again, not blaming anybody.
right on the
but-
opposite end. I was trying to do everything right because I didn't like getting in trouble. Was your typical firstborn. You probably know how that feels. But I can remember also hearing things as I got older of people we get divorced or whatever. We all go through as a kids when we hear our parents argue or something, we're so afraid, are they fixing a divorce? You go through all that. And most of the time, what I heard adults say in conversation was, well, they got married awfully young and they didn't sow their wild oats. That's what I heard all the time, even at church. And so I grew up then thinking that that was something I had to do in order to have a happy life. Whereas it had been totally different for him, that he had to do that to fit into with his crowd and to be a normal person. So it came to a halt real quick, though.
Yeah.
Both of us were very pro-life, would have never, ever, ever considered an abortion. But when you're living in that kind of state and you've done something very wrong and it's fixing to affect your whole family.
Yeah.
It's fixing to affect your whole life.
Disappointment to
Yes.
all of your family.
And we're both very big people pleasers. So abortion was mentioned in a conversation, and we have discovered since what went wrong. Satan used that. I thought then that's what he wanted me to do, and he thought it was what I wanted to do. Neither one of us wanted to, but we thought the other one did. And so then the decision was made to have the abortion. And here again, I think all of that was just a lot of miscommunication on our part that Satan made sure. And we were already at a state in our relationship we didn't want to lose each other. Of course, then I find out years later with couples who have had an abortion, only 1 in 4 ever make it a month, for even a month or two later down the road. And most of them never get married. So the fact that we stayed together and have been married now for almost 44 years is an absolute miracle. It's just God.
What was that call to your parents like when you told them that y'all were pregnant?
We didn't tell anybody at the time. We did not tell them. We didn't. We had what, a couple of friends that knew. That was
Couple of
it.
friends
We
at
did
school.
not tell anybody.
We didn't tell them.
It was a big secret. Some people probably found out, I'm sure, through the grapevine, because we're both in fraternities and sororities and people talk, But it never was like out as far as I know. But our parents had no idea. It wasn't until years later when I went through a lot of emotional and spiritual healing because of it that we finally told all our parents. And their answers then kind of shocked me because I don't want to get too far ahead, but we had prayed, especially when we told both sets, that the Holy Spirit would be a sponge to their heart to be able to take it. And if they wanted to be angry with us, it was okay. We'd finally gotten to that point in healing where it didn't matter. It was okay because they should have been. It was okay. We'd done something terrible. And the first thing that came out of my parents' mouths were, Karen, honey, you could have died from that. They were worried about me. They weren't even concerned that I was pregnant, which just blew my mind. But by that time, too, or maybe a little after, we realized that we were afraid of things like disappointing our parents, getting kicked out of school by them, having it hard because he only had, 1 quarter left to graduate. I had another year and a quarter to graduate. And so we thought it was going to be the end of our lives, and lives were going to be hard, and we weren't going to have any money, and we don't have a place to live, and just all these things just kind of come crashing in at one time, and you just get scared to death. Really, that is one of Satan's greatest weapons, is fear, because that's the only thing that drove us to that. Because it's not something we believed in and would have never considered it until it happens, and you're afraid and think you're going to be alone.
Do you think that brought y'all closer together?
It did. There have been things we've had to work through, though.
Yeah.
Because not that we blamed each other, but there's this. Well, first of all, having sex before marriage, and this is what we've told our kids, it causes there to be a distrust between the two. We don't care if you're engaged and about to get married. If you're not able to wait, there's something there that says, well, if you couldn't control yourself this time, can you control yourself next time? With somebody else or whatever. So there's a lot of distrust that we had to overcome, but the Lord helped us in doing that.
What do you mean by that? Like, you mean
Well, like
cheating
if
down the
you
road or
right, if you don't have the discipline and self-discipline ability not to go ahead and have sex, then your partner really cannot trust you to have the self-discipline for other things. So that's where it gets. And most married people that we know that happened before they got married, they've all kind of had to work through that just a little bit, because it does set a pace and sets a precedence in
And
your
you're not
relationship.
talking about who had abortion.
No,
but
we're
you're
talking about who just had
sex
premarital
before marriage.
sex, yes. So, but we've not met any other couple that's still together that's gone through an abortion, have we? I don't think we've met anybody.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. And I did post-abortion counseling for quite a while, about 4 years. And there was not one person in my groups and within those 4 years that was married to the man from the abortion experience. So we're an odd
Unusual.
couple and unusual, but it's just been God.
I wanted to ask, how did that affect you mentally?
Well, any grief experience of something you lose, and for a long time I didn't like to call it grief because that's what it is. But when you have an abortion, you made the decision, it just makes you feel guiltier. It's like, yeah, but my grief is not, I shouldn't get by with just grief for somebody that like had a baby to die. When you chose, yes, we did that. It was our fault. So you almost feel like the grieving experience is something you should have worse than anybody else. And but anytime you lose something, and even though we made that choice and decision, we still lost something. You go through a period of denial. That's usually the first step of grief, where you just deny this can't be real, this can't be real. And we were there for quite a while, quite a while. When we got married, which was actually about a year later, when we got married, though, I just had really, it was one thing to me. Okay, we sowed the wild oats. Now I'm going to do real life like real, like mom and daddy did, and how it should be. And it was really kind of interesting because Johnny was still drinking, playing softball. We most of our dating was done on a softball field, that or the library. But he came home one day from work at lunch, and it was through the summer, so I had not started my school year yet. And he just looked at me. Well, first, I better back up. I had had a dream that we were laying in bed watching TV, and the devil stood at the foot of my bed and said, I'm going to take him from you. And you know how you have those dreams where you can't really hardly say anything? And I was just trying to get it out, and I finally says, you can't have him. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And the dream was over. 2 weeks later, he comes home from work and says, honey, we got to have a talk. Something's got to give. And I'm thinking, oh dear, we've been married for 6 weeks. This can't be this bad. That's what I'm thinking. And he said, I can't live like this anymore. He said, we have friends on the weekend, and we have friends on Sunday and Wednesday night that are different. And he said, I can't ride the fence anymore. I said, well, what do you want to do? He says, I want to sell out to Jesus 100%. And he says that's when he got saved. Mm-hmm. He had walked the aisle and had done all that,
but yeah, that was not a real decision.
But that was an answer to prayer for me, because I didn't want to live the lifestyle we had still carried on from college. And so it all changed right there overnight. I mean, I've never seen anybody, and we've had friends in AA and stuff like that, and he just quit cold turkey, everything. It was a complete turnaround. And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because that's made a huge difference in our life. Huge. But after that, then I had to go through, because we were still in denial, I think, at that point in time. But when I got pregnant with Tyler, I was so afraid God was going to punish me for what I'd done and cause me to have something wrong with my baby. There was a little girl at school who was born without any oil glands. And so she looked blistered and peeled all the time. It was just so sad. And I would see her and I'd think, Lord, please don't punish me that way, and not realizing God does not operate like that. But I was still so afraid and still so convicted and guilty for what I had done. We had then Tori later, 2 years later, and we moved to LaGrange. And then we had Tatum. And when we had Tatum, that's when I could not hold it in any longer. And I was going to a ladies' Bible study, and it was just digging up a lot of things on the inside, things like my fear of rejection, which is here again the basis of why we had the abortion to begin with. That was at the root of most everything for me. And these two girls from the Bible study really walked through it with me for a long time, but I just completely fell apart. I would cry uncontrollably. I was suicidal at one time, even to the point of they had all gone to bed, the kids and Johnny, and I'm sitting in the living room just hating on myself with pills in my hand to take. And that night I literally heard voices. And I don't mean that like out in the room, but it's like I had this tightness in my chest, and I could just hear the devil whispering in my ear, go ahead, do it. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. And if they all knew what you did, they'd hate you. And all of a sudden, when that tightness in my chest started, it's like I could hear that still small voice say, you can't do it because I love you. It's not your choice. You can't do it because I love you. I love you. And that's what changed my life right there. I mean, I had already been saved, but that I understood love from the Lord like I've never understood it before. To know that He was enough, although I was not, He was. And from that point on, healing really took place, where I was able to forgive myself. That was the hardest part. I was able to forgive Johnny I was able to forgive the doctor because I had a lot of animosity there, kind of how it all went down and that kind of thing. And then I guess probably one of the last parts of healing, of course, I ended up getting the opportunity to speak at the Capitol during Walk for Life one year, Capitol in Georgia. And the kids were going, the top three, so that's when we told our parents.
Yeah, she was going to be potentially on TV.
On
so
TV, so
we
I
had to let them know
yeah.
before they see her.
And the whole reason I was there was to help other women understand there is forgiveness from the Lord, and you can forgive yourself. You can have basically your joy back in the Lord, that this is not the end of you, so to speak, And so that's why they wanted me to speak. I was really shocked. I thought, they don't want somebody like me. I made the wrong choice. They want the ladies up there talking that made the right choice, But they didn't. They wanted to hear because they knew about the post-abortion Bible studies we were having and how it was helping so many ladies too. So we told our parents, told our children, even though they were very young, we told them as best we could. And it was so sweet because Tyler looked at me and he put his arm around me and he says, Mama, that must have hurt your heart so bad. And it did, you know. But to hear him say that, and then for Mother to say, oh, wow, Karen, you could have died. I mean, it was like everybody was concerned about me, and I'm like, no, I'm the bad one here. You shouldn't be concerned about me. But through it all, the Lord really just did amazing things. But one of the things He did too, once I started getting training to do this counseling for this group and leading these support groups, they were all talking about, oh, and when I named my baby, and when I named my baby, and I'm like, what? I've never named the baby, but it was like giving that baby back the place in our family that he deserved. And no longer, I know this sounds terrible, and I don't mean it in a judgmental or harsh way, but for me, I felt like every time that I just tried to forget about the baby, that it was like aborting him in my heart all over again. And I just couldn't do it anymore because he mattered. He mattered. And so it was real funny because I remember waking up one night all night long. I was in Arizona at a conference for post-abortion support groups and such, and I'd wake up, I'd roll over and say, Lord, I really want to name my baby. What do I name my baby? I don't know what my baby was. What do I name my baby? And that morning in breakfast, I was still kind of sleepy and kind of in a hum. And it was honestly like everybody around me is talking, and I was just staring off at the wall. And all of a sudden, it's like the Lord showed me my child. And it was a little boy. And at the time, he was about 10 or 12, because that's how many years it had actually been. He looked just like his daddy. And one of the things that used to irritate me with Johnny, with the way he would treat people, sometimes I'd say, "Oh, you're just shooting a line. You're just shooting a line." And it's like the Lord showed me in my child that he's just like his daddy. He wants everybody to feel loved and happy. And all of a sudden, then I understood something with him that I'd never understood before either. So we named him John Wayne Peake Jr., and they called him JP in college, so that's what we call him, is JP. So all our kids know about JP, and he's a part of our family as much as can be. So
How old would he be now?
he would be 43 or 44. He's the same age as Jeffrey. Tyler will be 41, 42.
Tyler's born in '83. Tyler will be 43 this year.
Okay, so JP would be 45. 45. Yep.
Mr. Johnny, what was that? What flipped that switch for you that made you come to realization I got to change something? Was it the abortion or was it something else?
Um, it was. I was miserable because I was living one life Monday through Saturday, and then I was living a different life on Sunday. Um, and you know, I just I just had enough. Like I said, I was miserable, and I knew that we couldn't. Number one, I didn't want to continue with that, and number two, I had no idea what our future was going to be like if we continued down that road. And so I just felt like, okay,
And we had a pastor that he was close to at the
yeah,
time, too, Joe
yeah,
Allen.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, probably close as I've ever been to a pastor, and he had really spent a lot of time with me and mentored me, and I just realized something's got to change, and I knew
He
that's what
had
it
done our
was.
premarital counseling as well, so that
Mm-hmm.
I think was just a start and a beginning
Right.
with him.
So, how did you begin to change? What began to change in your life?
Well, uh, for one, folks that we spent most of our time with outside of the church, we didn't spend any more time with. And I don't really know if I don't know how they felt about our decision. Um, but we knew that this is what we had to do. So we just pretty much cut everybody off. I mean, we weren't ugly to anybody, but we stopped going to things, and even if we were invited, I'm sorry, we can't make it or whatever. And then we just begin to pour our the time that we would have had that we would have been spending with those folks doing things that we didn't need to be doing, then we just redirected all of that energy to things we were doing in the church.
How hard was it to cut people off and cut certain things out of your life?
It's it's kind of hard for me to remember right now because I'm thinking that it wasn't that difficult, but at the time it probably was.
I think too, drinking was hardest because I remember you saying that you still, after a softball game, having a cold beer was like, you know,
Yeah, they just kind
it
of
was
went
hard to
together.
not do. But for
Yeah.
him, that wasn't something he could do, or it would just
Yeah.
carry him right back to where he was.
Now, were you an alcoholic?
I feel like I
He
was
was.
because when I drank, most of the time I got drunk.
There
And I,
was no social to it,
yeah.
really.
And I can remember at the fraternity house one night, one of my fraternity brothers, he was actually an alum. He was an alum. He had already graduated from college, but he would come to the
He
fraternity
lived there in
house,
town
for events and so forth. And so Karen and I got in an argument
because he wouldn't quit
because I
drinking.
wouldn't quit drinking, and so she went out and she was going to leave, and he came outside and had a strong talk with me. And it's interesting because that gentleman, at the time, he was not living for the Lord, but he had a life changing experience with cancer, wasn't it?
I think so.
And so he's his life is completely changed.
He's actually
He
a
goes
preacher
around.
now.
He's a minister. He goes around sharing his testimony about what the Lord did in his life. So it's really neat.
He didn't know it, but he was ministering that
Yeah, he
night
was.
too.
Yeah, in a big way.
Yeah,
Probably saved
our
our
relationship.
potential. Yeah, our relationship at the time.
I had a guy on the show a few weeks ago, and he was addicted to alcohol for a long time before he finally um, was set free of that. And he said it began with hanging out with. He played baseball in high school, and he started hanging out with the seniors because as like a freshman and sophomore, he was included by the seniors, and so it began there and just progressed throughout high
Right.
school into
Right.
adulthood. Was that your experience too?
You were 13.
Somewhat, but mine started earlier. I was like 13 years old, and uh, I had a childhood friend who now is also a believer, very strong Christian. But that's how I was introduced to alcohol, and even though it was very minor, that's where it all started.
And the red then.
And then, I mean, I was involved in an accident with four other guys. All of us were intoxicated, hit a tree. Only by the grace of God, did we all live. None of us were seriously hurt. And there are only two of us still living, oddly enough. But I was 15 years old. I wasn't even old enough to drive. And we had that accident. And I mean, so the Lord was trying to get my attention
Even then,
even then, but I was real stubborn. I backed off of things for a little bit, but it wasn't long before I was right back in it.
Here again, I do think a lot of it between both of us was just that people pleasing mentality. Because who you choose to be friends with really matters.
Sure it does.
Really matters.
why do you think people pleasing can be so dangerous?
Because who you are with, you want to be everybody wants to be accepted and loved, period. We're made that way. God makes us that way, and the only thing that can fill it is Him. But many times we try to fill it with people and things that we live around. And, it can be, and with baseball, I know he talked to a young man one time, really trying to talk him out of playing baseball because it was just going to be a different lifestyle the child was a homeschooler and he was actually going to start going to school just to play ball. But you know, who you hang out with is who you're going to become, and there's scripture that backs that up. You know, you're going to be like the people you hang out with. You're going to be like the people. If you start thinking like them, then you're going to be how you think. And so it can be very, very scary to make sure. And people pleasing, you can still be in church, I guess, and do people pleasing,
Well, I
and you
mean,
run
it could
yourself to
be-
death. You know,
It could be you're trying to dress like
yeah,
folks, and
exactly.
you're spending money you don't have just to dress like, you know. It could be all kinds of different,
Right.
you know,
But it's a trap because we only need to
situations.
please the Lord
Yeah.
and love people, but it's not pleasing them is not what we're supposed to be doing, and getting their approval.
Bad company corrupts good character.
Yep, it does. It does.
So I kind of want to go back to your story because it seems to me that you had some sort of like childhood trauma in different ways or stuff that carried into college that kind of affected you. Um, do you think with alcohol you were trying to use that as a substitute or an escape from maybe some of the things that happened in your childhood or the pain you felt? Or was it just because everybody else was
I
doing it
think
and
it
that's
was
what you
just for
did?
acceptance. And I just believed the lie that, hey, that's what you do. But the strange thing about it, my dad never drank. I take that back. I think he said when he was in World War II in Germany that, you know, they
That
drank
might make a lot of
beer.
people
Yeah,
drink,
I
right?
They
couldn't
drank
blame
a
'em.
beer. But I remember it distinctly. I don't know why I remember this, but he said over there they drank it hot. So,
Oh wow.
but I mean, so
Wow.
he didn't
Interesting.
drink. My mom didn't drink.
But you did have an older brother that had done all these things
Yeah,
too. And then the friend, like next door.
yeah.
So there's a lot of influences
And then
there.
playing ball and uh, baseball, football. It just fit in. I guess is one
And
way
he
to
was
say it.
always the cute child and the cute guy at school too. He doesn't realize that. He doesn't see that about himself, but he was.
Sometimes it takes somebody else
I
telling you.
know.
Yeah, sometimes you need
And he
somebody
was
else.
like Mr. Ari Lee, you know, so he was very popular. And he was class president, all that.
Wow. Had you not made that change in your life, well, both of y'all together, where do y'all think y'all would be right now?
I might not be alive.
And I definitely think we would not be married,
Yeah.
even though I can't imagine that, you know. But I don't see how we could have kept going
I agree.
at that pace. That would have been rough.
Did the abortion have any effects on you mentally? Stuff that you carried? I know it's not as I want to be careful how I say this. Not I don't want to say as personal, but you know what
Well,
I'm
I
saying.
understand what you're
Yes,
saying.
yeah.
Because you're not carrying the child, but you still
Exactly.
played a part.
Right. Yeah. I mean, um, lots of times, especially if if I was depressed, something not going my way. Um, there were times when I would think, "Do you know what you did?" And I would start, um, blaming myself. Which I mean, obviously, I'm the one that I was one of two that was involved in this, but you know, it would just keep coming up, and I mean, I didn't go through some of the things that Karen did,
Right.
and I think that's because it was part of her body, but still, it certainly had an effect on me.
And I think even me going through the healing process sometimes made him feel like a failure, that he was putting me through that, even though he wasn't. I think he looked at a lot of that as being his fault, that I had to go through all that. Because there were days that he would come home to, I mean, he thought I was losing it, I guess,
Yeah.
probably. And I did too. I wasn't sure until I started getting help. I just wasn't sure because the uncontrollable crying and when you have that much self hate going on, it's just not a pretty picture.
We had some wonderful Christian
Yes.
friends that uh, stood in the gap.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been for them, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened.
Yep.
What would you say to? Well, let me begin with this. A lot of times, people will say they're pro-life and against abortion until it comes down to it, and it's something that happens to their own child.
Right.
And a lot of times, they make the decision for the child.
Right.
What would you say to a parent like that that's trying to make that decision of?
Well, in working with crisis pregnancy centers or center mainly in LaGrange, I did work some here, but we would have even situations where girls had been raped. The main thing I try to help people understand is that yes, man may have made the decision to have sex or to commit rape, but the devil is not going to cause someone to get pregnant, because then that's just one more image of Christ person he's got to put up with and deal with, because it could be put a hurting on him, so to speak. So I try to help them understand this baby is not because of sin. This baby is a gift in spite of the sin. And hopefully they can understand the difference, because I think too many times, and we have to be careful, there's a great balance, between helping train children and not going that route as to then supporting them, though, when they do make the mistake. It's a very delicate balance. And I think the first thing, though, especially if it's a Christian parent, because I've known Christian parents to do as much as others don't, because they don't want the people to find out, the church to find out, or don't want their lives to be ruined or changed or whatever, and they'll choose that, like you said, the abortion for their child. But what they're giving them in replacement is just so much emotional damage, a lot of spiritual confusion too, sometimes, with guilt that they're going to have to carry. But I think just helping people understand that baby is a person, that baby, God is the only one that creates life. We participate, but He creates life. I don't understand sometimes why people do get pregnant. I've had friends that have begged to have a baby and never get pregnant, and then they'd have a sister that was living like awful, and she get pregnant just like that. I can't answer those questions. All I know is God is the one who gives life, not the devil, not Satan. He's not going to give life. He's just going to give disease and other things and death. He's not going to give life. And that baby is from God, regardless, to heal the situation, not hurt it.
I recently saw a chart that was a pie graph, and it had all of the combined deaths of World War II, all the combined deaths of World War One, all the combined deaths of the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, every conflict we've been in since the turn of the
Right.
20th century.
Right.
And then it had abortions. And the abortions part took up about 90%,
Yes.
maybe 95% of that graph.
Yes. It has done a whole lot more than people realize. And when I was doing the post abortion counseling and got the training that I did learn that one, let's see, how many was it? 1 in 3 people that you knew has had an abortion or has known someone close to them, like sister, best friend, who has. And when you think of those statistics, that's staggering. And this was in 1990 when I got that training. So that's a long time ago. There's no telling what it really is now. When you're walking around people every day, we have no idea what's going on inside their heart, because this is one thing that the pro-choice people will try to tell you is not real. They want to act like that there's never any feelings left, that it's just all good, because now we don't have to worry about being pregnant. And that's just absolutely not true. If I lose my car keys when I get ready to drive, it's going to cause me grief. If I lose a dollar bill and I needed that dollar bill for something, it's going to cause me some grief. Anything we lose is going to cause grief. Now we can mask it, cover it up, do whatever we want to with it, but there's a price to pay. And the pro-choice people, I really, sometimes my heart breaks for them, because they're trying to make right something that is so wrong so they will feel better about their decisions, I feel like.
Thank y'all for sharing all that.
You're welcome.
Can we talk, just wrapping up now, can we kind of talk about y'all's salvation? I guess I would say true salvation kind of after when y'all decided to make that change, that y'all were no longer going to live how y'all were living. When did salvation come into the picture?
Well, for me, it was that day that we were just talking about.
Yep.
So I was, how old?
23.
24. For you,
For me, it's a little different. I got saved at 11, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, because I'm sitting there at camp and they've got puppets and all. It's been a very entertaining week, and all of a sudden he's talking, and it's like I realized, ugh, he just described me. And all of a sudden I realized, and I knew it was the Holy Spirit now, I didn't know then, just wooing me to him, that I needed him, that I did not know him like that. So when I made the decision to step out and sow the wild oats, so that I could have the happy life, that was kind of the lie that I fell for. It was very hard. I had so much guilt all the time. It was just very, very hard. But I felt like, here again, something I had to do. I was in church on and off during all that time, and so right before we got married, I guess, is when I began to have heart change. But I couldn't really talk about it with him because he wasn't there yet, and I did not want to run him off, so to speak. But I will still have to say, it wasn't until probably, let's see, we've been married how many times? Tori was born in 85. 86. So we'd been married 4 years by that time, that the Lord really began to deal with me, and help me understand that he still loved me. Because things like some just close areas with the Lord that I had before all that took place, I thought I'd never have again. And the Lord restored it and gave more. But I would say that probably started happening in '86 more than, even though I was gradually, when he got totally saved in the summer, that made everything different because then I could be open about how I was feeling. So we were at least going in the same direction then. But I didn't want to be one of those wives that was going to church and my husband wouldn't come anymore because I was pushing him. So I was thankful that the Lord turned him around. But it still then took a lot of growth because I just I felt like damaged goods, even to the Lord, and He had to show me, no, baby, you're not damaged goods. I love you as much now as I ever did. But that was very hard to accept. But I did finally.
We're all fearfully and wonderfully made
Yes,
with a
we are.
purpose.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
If y'all were sitting across from a couple right now that has made some mistakes and they just feel hopeless and lost, what would be your word of advice to them?
Well, number one, God still loves you.
No.
And you haven't gone too far
Right.
to not be able to come back. And He's just waiting on you.
Right. And I think I would just share that it's so hard for us sometimes to think like God because we think like man too often. But it's just to help them understand, like he said, to realize that God loves them and He's enough. Even when we are not enough, He's enough. Even when we have not been faithful, He is faithful. And He loves us that much that He's all we need. He's all we need. And that would be, I guess my advice would be to center everything, your thoughts, your lifestyle, everything on Him. Get to know Him better through His Word and center everything. Start making every decision according to what He says to. It's a place to start. And it's not easy, but it gets easier as you go. It's never too late.
Thank y'all for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. It's not a pretty topic sometimes, but it is very
easy to
real.
talk about.
It's very real. And it happens a lot more than we realize. And when people don't talk about it, then they're not as comfortable to discuss it either. So maybe it'll help somebody else.
Well, then it's more apt to happen again
Yeah, exactly.
when they don't talk about
I
it.
actually did have one friend in one of my support groups that, as she's going through for an abortion she had, remembered in the middle that she had completely mentally blocked out another abortion she had. Because we can do that when things are traumatizing to our lives, we can block them completely from our memory. And she had completely until things began to open up through that study. So it was really neat.
Do you think healing comes when you talk about it?
Yes. He can tell you, anybody that has had a big trauma in their life or a death in their life or anything, and the kids don't get counseling, or the adults involved don't get counseling, I get very, very concerned, because you can't just suck it up and act like it doesn't happen. It's going to affect your life. It is a true loss. And there are a whole lot more losses than just death that we deal with in life, that we have to, it can be the loss of, well, this was the ideal way I thought my life would go. And then all of a sudden it's completely going the opposite direction. You got to deal with it. You got to talk to somebody about it. Talking about it is very, very important. You don't have to have a counselor necessarily, but you do need to have someone you can love and trust whose heart is for your best benefit. Because I did end up going to one professional counselor through the very beginning of the post abortion stuff, but I ended up with a lady at our crisis pregnancy center, and that began the real work that God had. And she was not a licensed counselor. She was just a good friend who was willing to walk through it with me and help me see God in everything. So it was good.
Sometimes it's those that the world deems unqualified who are the
Yes.
most qualified.
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. James Dobson used to say that I think one reason we have to have counselors so much now is used to families lived so close to each other that when things happened, your family was right there to help you get through whatever it was you were going through. Now we don't live close to families sometimes. I haven't been back to Lawrence County to live in 44 years, well, longer than 44, about 48 years. So, you have to find other ways than other friends and find out who is a friend and who's not really a friend, that kind of thing.
Seclusion makes it worse.
Yes, it does. Seclusion and isolation is another tactic of the enemy because it's just like a wound. If we have a wound and we don't doctor it or do anything to it to clean it out, it's going to get infected. And that's what happens in this as well, emotionally, is it gets infected and it inside is just nasty.
Festers.
Yep.
I offer every guest, well, this is something I've begun recently, offering guests the opportunity to highlight either their favorite verse or a verse that's meant something to them throughout their life in my Bible. So is that something y'all would do for me individually?
Sure.
Is y'all could do a verse together, or y'all could pick your own verses.
Well, I know mine right off the bat because,
We might need to do it together.
okay,
Okay.
he has a lot of good ones though. But when I went through the post-abortion healing, I was having anxiety attacks really bad, to the point that I was riding down the road one day and had the older three kids in the back seat, and I'm going to actually look at a piano for somebody that was interested in buying. And I started down the road, and all of a sudden, I don't know who I am. I know that these kids in the back are mine, but I don't know their names. I completely lost for just a short period of time all touch with reality, and it was nothing but the anxiety. I pulled into a flowers bread store, which I shopped at frequently, and just sat there. And the store was familiar, but I just sat there for a few minutes, and finally, little by little, everything came back. But it was scary, absolutely scary. So the anxiety attacks were a big deal, and the Lord healed me with the anxiety attacks with the Word. And I would carry around a little notebook of scripture. I put it in first person. And when I felt the attacks coming on, I would pray his word in first person. So it was Philippians 4:6. I will not have any fear or anxiety over anything, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, I will make my requests known unto God. And then he will mount garrison my heart and give me the peace through Christ Jesus. And so, that's what brought me peace. That's what got rid of the anxiety attacks. And I remember I did get off. I was going to a homeschool, I think, science fair with the kids. And I've got I carried my notebook everywhere I went. And the kids would say, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, I'm reading my prayer. I'm reading my prayer, because I'd say it out loud just like I hear myself. And I start having an anxiety attack going down the road, and I look and I don't have my notebook. And that just, oh dear, I thought, oh great,
made it
this is,
worse.
yeah, and it's like the Lord just says, you know it, just say it, and I just started saying it, and from that day on, I've never had another anxiety attack. It's just God. His word really does set us free, and it really does heal us because it did me. So that's my favorite one.
Well, I'd love to
Our
see it in.
favorite one.
I'd love to see it in the Bible. If y'all put it in there for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So, before we wrap up, I want to know 3 people you would like to see on the podcast for me to interview. These can be couples, these can be individuals.
Oh wow. Okay, let's see.
I give you an example. Miss Toy suggested a format that I do that I have one old person and one young person, somebody more
Oh,
of
that's
my
a
age,
great
and ask them
idea.
both the same questions and see what different answers
I
I
like
get.
that. I like that. That would
Yeah.
be
I
good.
think that's something I'm
Yeah,
gonna do.
that'd be really good. That'd be really good. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if I can think of anybody. Can you?
I I think Levi just needs to keep with his calling out for Mike Rowe.
I agree. I think Mike Rowe needs to be sitting right here.
He does this thing
Or
that
FaceTime.
We watch him all the time.
yeah, he's great.
He is.
He does this thing, this organization he has
Yes, I've
where they,
noticed
they
that.
have about $10 million and they give it to these kids that they see potential in
Yes.
and encourage them to go to trade school
Right.
rather
right.
than going into some cushy degree that's AI is going to
Exactly.
take over, you know.
Right. Right.
The backbone of America.
I
You
know.
know what? Because these people are needed. You need
Yes.
construction workers and
Right.
plumbers and electricians, especially like with AI. Data centers
Exactly.
need water. Data centers need electricity. There's somebody that has to do that
Exactly.
work. So I think that's something
I'm
excellent.
real impressed with what he's doing there. I heard somebody just yesterday talking about the pendulum swinging. And what has happened is because we all used to have a bunch of trade workers and factory workers and everything, and then everybody got to go to college. And so we're back up here now. We've got all these college graduates who can't even get jobs because they're all full because everybody's going to college. And now we're lacking in the trades,
I agree.
so need to swing
the
it back
base
down
is
and
not
maybe
there.
at least get a balance out of this because that's where we are pretty much. But yeah, Mike Rowe needs to come talk about that.
I'm
I think you ought to get
continuing to
Steve
try.
Harvey also to talk about what he does at the Rock Ranch.
Really.
Yeah,
Okay.
he does. I've heard that he does a really, really good job with the camps he has there with just teaching the inner city kids life skills. And I'd just be interested to know. I think Steve Blackston
I had
mentioned
Steve.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you had him
Yeah.
on here, and he mentioned that too. So
Okay.
I think he'd be, and maybe somebody you
he'd
could
be
actually
good.
grab a hold of. You
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he's down this way.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
He sure
Well, awesome. I'll continue
And
to
I
work
tell
on
you
it.
something else too. I think about. I don't know who though. I don't know if it would be Josh Adams or somebody he knew at the church. That church, First Baptist in Barnesville, is. I mean, they are just amazing with outreach.
Really.
Yes, I mean, I feel like they could teach, they could probably run a conference to teach all of us how to do better outreach. And it seems to be just like a part of who they are. It's not like these special programs necessarily. I know they do the, what do you call it, sports,
Upwards.
upward
Yeah.
sports, yeah.
I
But
had
they do so much ministry wise that I don't think people even really see because they do it just as individuals. But that'd be good. I don't really know who the contact person for that would be, but you could ask any of the Andrews family probably. They
okay.
could tell
I
you.
had Chuck Bankston on too.
Yes, yes, yes.
And he talked to me some about some of the stuff they have going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's amazing to me what they do.
I mean, it's absolutely important,
It
especially
is.
within our own community.
I
There's so many
know.
hurting in our own
And
community.
Judy, I know she did a class for new converts that were, they have it set up within grade levels, I think, or age levels. And so our grandsons were they were going to a totally different church, but they were a part of that. And then I found out there were some of our kids at our church that had actually gone to be a part of that. So that's just amazing to me that they were taking that kind of time, and it was not about their church. It was more about just having that available for kids who were new converts that needed to know how to follow the Lord. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all so much for being here. This was an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure to host both of
Good.
y'all.
I
and
appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Yep.
Absolutely.